Welcome to Disruption Blueprint with Shannon Spotswood from RFG Advisory. In this podcast, we help advisors grow their net worth, build their businesses, and maximize their independence. We've built an award-winning platform with innovative technology, comprehensive service, and a team of individuals who are experts in their field to serve advisors. Join us for this journey where we explore everything that has to do with running an independent advisor practice as we bring together successful advisors, industry experts, and innovative minds who are on the bleeding edge to challenge the status quo, foster new ideas, and create a path for advisors to unleash their growth potential. Now, on to the show.
Jack, welcome to Disruption Blueprint. We are so happy to have you.
Thanks, Shannon.
I've been really looking forward to this conversation, and I think advisors are going to get a lot out of what you have to share. So,
well, I hope
get
so.
ready.
I don't know. You may be more confident than I am.
All right, so we're going to jump right in because you have a really interesting journey that led you to becoming a financial advisor.
Sure.
This is actually a second career for you.
Mm-hmm.
So talk to us about that. Tell us about your first career and then why you settled on becoming a financial advisor as your second career.
Sure. I studied accounting in school and thought that's the path I wanted to pursue. And I enjoyed accounting in college, and I was working for what was then Ernst & Winnie. It's Ernst & Young now, and hated it. I found myself a year into my career miserable.
Wow.
So, but I was pursuing my CPA. So I completed my CPA certification and promptly left the field of accounting and went into sales, and primarily in healthcare. I started out in pharmaceutical sales, and then I went into hospital sales, and ultimately led to corporate development work in healthcare. And I spent a good portion of the 90s traveling coast to coast, doing acquisition deals. Doing deals. I loved it. Absolutely loved it. But it's a hard life. I was a road warrior, gone probably 150 nights a year.
Wow.
Lots of air travel. Fortunately, prior to 9/11.
Yeah.
So I could literally
you like roll on the gate.
I would park at the Birmingham airport and walk straight down to the gate and get on the plane. I would leave my house in Vestavia maybe 30 minutes before departure.
Right. The goal used to be show up 5 minutes before the doors close.
If they were not boarding your flight when you got to the airport, you were late.
Early. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you were early. Yeah,
Yeah.
early. So, nevertheless, my children were growing up, and I wanted to get off the road. And that led me to a period of time to try to figure out what I wanted to do. And someone suggested you'd make a good stockbroker.
Yeah.
And I hadn't thought about that. I came home and started kind of doing a little research and thought, well, I could do that.
I'm a CPA. I've done sales.
Correct.
I'm a deal guy, so I understand the numbers.
That's exactly right. So I decided to talk to some people here in Birmingham, and I met with the folks at UBS, Smith Barney, and Merrill Lynch. I thought those would be good ones to talk to. I was offered at
Three jobs.
Actually UBS gave me some sort of psychological profile exam and said I didn't pass and that there's no way I could be successful in this business. So
strike one against the profiling for success.
I am somewhat of an introvert.
Uh-huh. Even though you had this successful career in sales.
Correct.
Yeah.
I'm relatively shy. I have never made a cold call. in this business. And I would, if in this, I just can't do it. I'm not good at that. I can make warm calls, I can network, I can do all that sort of thing, but I'd rather have my teeth pulled without anesthesia than to make a cold call. So,
which I think a lot of advisors, it's somewhat of a misnomer. A lot of advisors can relate to that.
Yeah, I don't think I'm unique necessarily. There's
But
a lot of people that have call apprehension, and I ultimately went to work for Merrill Lynch, and I ultimately ended up running their training program after I graduated from the training program. Within 6 months, I was running it, and I just told the people I was trying to. It's kind of amazing. I was 2.5 years into the business, and I was trying to mentor new trainees. That makes no sense. But a lot of things at Merrill didn't make sense.
But you also brought a whole career of experience to the table,
Correct.
Which those trainees needed.
And I had a Rolodex when I came into the business.
Yep.
So it worked out, reasonably well for that. And Merrill was a good place for me to start, frankly. I learned a lot. There were some really nice people in the Birmingham office where I was that helped me, and I made some friends. But it's so ultimately, after Bank of America acquired Merrill and they cut the pay for the low producers, I was there in production 4 years, and so by definition, I was going to be a low producer. So they cut the pay, so I left. Went to Ameriprise for a few more years on the employee side. Yeah. And then learned about this RIA in the building next door to us. And quite a few of us came from Ameriprise.
I'm gonna hold you on the chapter of independence, because I want to circle back into the personal journey, because I'm a big believer and feel like my career has been so positively influenced, and me as a person have been so positively influenced by the power of the pivot. And those kind of long nights staring at the ceiling, thinking about who am I, how do I want to spend my time. And I also, like you, have been a deal junkie. I've worked the investment banking hours and slept under the desk, and there is nothing sexier. There is nothing more exhilarating until you kind of look around and you're like, this is an amazing life, but it's the only part of my life. Yeah. Yeah. And everything else has been sacrificed as a result.
And it's a high-flying life. Literally, the most number of flight segments I had in one 7-day period was 26. Yeah. And so that, it's just, work all day, fly all night, or fly all day, work all night, or what. It was crazy. But I also came to grips with a little bit of personal issues, in that I was an abuser of alcohol, and came to grips with having to do something about that in the late 90s. And by the grace of God, I've been sober now almost 25 years.
Which is amazing. Congratulations.
It's a nice feeling. Yeah. I'm very fortunate compared to so many people that I did not lose a job or a family or anything with my alcohol abuse. Yeah. I could have, and most people go down that path before they do something about it. Right. Unfortunately, everybody's tolerance for lows are different. Apparently, I don't have much tolerance for adversity. So I was actually on a business trip in Florida and got a DUI less than 500 yards from my hotel. And I was very fortunate that I didn't hurt anybody or myself or anything. But I'm also very fortunate that happened to me because it woke me up. And that's the last drink I had was that night. And that was October 28th, 1997.
Wow. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
And it's, I've walked that journey with my brother. He's 23 years sober. And it's interesting. His anniversary is December 21st, but he got sober the first, and he was both drugs and alcohol. He was really more of a hardcore drug user. The alcohol was just, I think, probably a little bit of the cherry on top for him for my wedding. So he got sober at the end. We're October 30th. My husband and I have been married for 23 years this October, and so he got sober for my wedding, fell off the wagon, and then his rock bottom was the winter solstice on December 21st. And it's one of the things I love about the authenticity of being an independent advisor is that you get to bring your whole self to the job. You're not trying to fit into this corporate mold. And as you entered into your second career and now have built a very successful second career, it has shaped you. It's shaped how you interact with clients. It's shaped how you spend your time. It's shaped your, what's important to you. So, talk about how your sobriety, your journey of sobriety has really impacted almost the day-to-day experience with your clients and how you think about investing.
Okay, well, there's actually two tracks there that's probably worth exploring. One is with my clients, the vast majority of them, there's probably not 5% of them that don't know about my sobriety journey.
And
some of my history.
Newsflash, the 5% now know.
Well, that's probably right. Surprise. So, however, many families struggle with this, and we as advisors become an integral part of their family, essentially. Right. And it's allowed many of my clients, I think, have struggled with a family member or a child or a spouse
or themselves
that have struggled in this area. And to be able to talk with me about that as opposed to their investments or their financial planning or whatever, I think has been beneficial in some of those relationships, because we're trying to be a life advisor with our clients. Yep. So we're holding their hand on life's journey, and in many ways it's centered around the investments and other financial decisions, but it's not exclusive of that. Right. So I think that's been very beneficial. I've yet to have anyone that's ever said, I'm not sure we should work together because you're a recovering alcoholic. So
they go straight to the AA meeting.
Yeah. So from that standpoint, it's been good. On another channel there is that I have really become more aware of different managers out there and their investment philosophies regarding things. A lot of time the key word right now is ESG, but I don't necessarily think it's all just that. But there's certain areas that I think many of our clients they're just not aware of what some of their investments may be going toward.
Right.
And it may not align with their personal values. So as an advisor, I feel like it's important. I use in my own household's investments, I only use managers that I know pursue investing strategies that don't invest in alcohol companies or tobacco companies, because
addiction is so devastating.
I just think it's now, frankly, I think cigarette addiction is harder to get over probably from talking to people. I've never smoked.
Yeah.
But I think, I didn't have an addiction. Yeah. I had social change that I had to do and habits and things that I needed to change. but I was not addicted.
Right.
I think an addiction is more difficult to manage.
Absolutely. And that's probably why your low didn't have to be so catastrophic the way so many others are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So anyway, I have studied a little bit about, for instance, alcohol consumption. Mm-hmm. All of us know people today. I know people that are real close to me that shouldn't drink, that do, and it continues to bite them in the butt.
Yeah.
And I keep thinking, maybe you ought to come talk to me or talk to somebody or whatever. Maybe you need to change your life, because your life, you can change your life.
Yeah.
And so in studying this, a third of Americans don't drink at all, American adults. Mm-hmm. Another third are very modest consumers of alcohol. Mm-hmm. But 10%, the 10% of adults consume over 70 drinks a week.
Wow.
10 drinks a day.
Wow.
The top 10%. The next decile consumes 2 drinks a day.
Yeah.
That's 90% of alcohol consumption.
Right there.
From 20%. It's worse than the 80-20 rule.
Right, right. Yeah.
It is worse than the 80-20 rule. So the alcohol companies have to market to those people, because just if that
that's their best consumer.
If that top 10% just matched what the second 10% is of 2 drinks a day, 60% of their business would be gone.
Go away.
They can't survive on that.
Right.
So they have to promote something that we know has devastating impacts, particularly the people consuming that much.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't want to be a part of it.
Right. Right.
So it is, a lot of things I probably shouldn't name this. We'll cut it if this doesn't work. But for instance, I've had 2 clients in the last week ask me if we're doing anything with BlackRock. Mm-hmm.
Because it's hit their radar about the housing crisis.
Yes, and BlackRock and Larry Fink was on with this, I don't know what conference or whatever, and he's talking about all this woke agenda and that sort of thing. And I've had 2 clients this week ask me, are we investing anything in BlackRock? Because they don't
not even
like
the housing
agenda.
piece of it. This was the woke agenda.
It's the woke agenda. And what, Larry Fink, is that his name?
Yes. Yeah.
And
they want to vote their values with their investing.
Correct. And they are going out there. And so I think it's something that is important to people that we often don't ask about.
Right.
But to see if that's
Which is why, ESG is, and it's like so many evolutions in industries, the first crack at it is not the last crack at it. And so the intent of ESG, of allowing people to invest their values at the surface, makes a lot of sense, and I think is a very admirable path. I think there's this question, and we haven't solved it yet as an industry, of how to judge that, how do you measure it, how do you score it, what's really the veracity of that moniker of ESG. So I think that there, as we look out on the industry in the next, 5 to 10 years, that is an ever evolving as we get better at data and we really come up with a way. But I think you're right. It's so important. I want to turn to your practice, because what you've done and what you've built, and this is true of all successful advisors, is a practice that reflects your values. And so what you're talking about with regards to this 25-year journey of sobriety and really being able to look at your clients' investment portfolios, your personal investment portfolios, and know that you're not supporting something that you are, not only opposed to, but have seen firsthand the devastating impacts of it, is really important. And you talked at the beginning about starting your journey at the wirehouses, and yet you knew somewhere along that path that independence was where you needed to be to live the fully realized version of yourself and the practice that you are trying to create. So pick up where you kind of left off. You're leaving Ameriprise and you're looking at independence. Like, what was it that allowed you to take that leap, having gone investment banker, big corporate, right. Merrill, Ameriprise. All right, now I'm going to be out here, Jack Burnette, RFG Advisory,
right.
Independent advisor.
Well, to some degree, when I got into this business, I really didn't know how this business worked.
Yeah.
There's good, bad, and ugly in every industry, and ours is no different. What I really learned at both Merrill and at Ameriprise is that they pushed an agenda of what their corporate objectives were, yep. more than anything else. And the field sales force, the yep. army of advisors, is their tool to achieve those objectives. Yep. So they have all kinds of initiatives, and so they do things to steer the advisors to do those things they want to do. Yep. At Merrill, it was really going after the more affluent advisor or affluent client, so that, for instance, shortly after I got to Merrill Lynch, they said if you worked with a client and it was not a $250,000 in account, you wouldn't get paid on it. Mm-hmm. Okay. You could open it.
Right.
They could get paid on it.
Yeah, but you couldn't.
But I couldn't get paid on it. And I thought to myself, well, I was targeting a certain group of clients, and many of them had great opportunities in retirement, but they weren't retired yet. So it was a lot of opportunity to get my foot in the door with a client, work with them, but the real opportunity was going to be when that client retired, mm-hmm. and they were going to get a corporate pension, and they would have a substantial 401k and all these opportunities potentially.
Right. Playing the long game.
And it is yeah. a long game.
Yeah.
And many of my great clients today, I started very, very small and was not getting paid yeah. on.
Right.
But it was the right thing to do. A, they needed help and right. guidance, and so it was the right thing to do. And B, they were going to have much more investment opportunities for me to work with down the road.
Yep.
At Ameriprise, for example, they really pushed their proprietary insurance and annuity business. Mm-hmm. And so
that was their agenda.
That's their agenda.
Yep.
And they pushed that, and their whole concept centered around financial planning was designed to, all their planning tools were designed to point out the need for annuities or insurance, mm-hmm. Which they just happened to be right there with their proprietary products
yep.
that were positioned better
yep.
for that.
And these are for-profit entities. So
absolutely.
God bless them. Godspeed.
No, and so I'm not saying that's wrong necessarily. Yep. I'm just saying
it didn't fit for you.
It became. I started seeing through a lot of that yeah. and thinking, well, that's not necessarily right for this client or that client. And yeah. and I just became more knowledgeable. And so I didn't realize how much of that corporate strategic agenda I was missing until I went independent.
Right.
And there was this total void of people telling me how to run my business. And that I could run my business the way I want to yeah. and pursue the types of clients I want to pursue.
Yeah.
And so it was refreshing.
Right.
And, I thought when I came here that I was kind of entering the twilight of my career, perhaps. And I remember sitting down with you and Bobby and saying, look, if you're looking for somebody that's going to work real hard and is driven and towards growth and that sort of thing, I'm not your guy.
Yep.
And
I vividly remember that conversation.
And I think my assets under management were probably about a fourth of what they are today.
Yeah. Oh, the irony.
I know.
It's like, I'm not going to grow, and here you are.
But I've not worked harder.
Right.
And as a matter of fact, I really haven't prospected in that period of time. But it's been natural through, just natural relationships in my circles that I operate in, and client word of mouth. And we've been fortunate over the last 6 or 7 years, not so much in the last 12 months, but with some good markets.
Right.
That's helped. So
it has, but you're a ninja level operator of work-life balance.
Oh, work-life balance.
Yeah. Ninja level operator. Like, you have and I think part of this is, the lens of career 1, career 2, your journey. You and Barbara, your wife, have really carved out a significant amount of time to invest in each other and in making memories, and have figured out a way to not only have longevity and success in the industry, but to maximize the amount of time that you're spending and living your life. Like, how have you done that? Like, everyone wants to be Jack Burnette.
One of the key foundations for being able to not work as much as I do, and the thing is, I work every day.
Right, you're working all the time.
I work all the time.
You're just not tethered to the office.
And I work 7 days a week.
Yeah.
All the time. I'm always thinking about my clients and work and markets and so forth. But I think that it's important. Barbara and I will be married in June. It'll be 40 years.
Wow. And
we've been very fortunate that we've grown together over the course of time. And I think that's, any marriage is a leap of faith, essentially. And sometimes people can grow together and sometimes they don't. And Barbara and I have been very fortunate to grow together and build something special. We love adventure and travel, and we have unbelievable technology today that, financial advisors 20 years ago,
you were tethered to your phone.
Couldn't take a 3-week trip.
Right.
I think nothing about taking a 3-week trip to Europe or Asia or anything like that. I work every day, at least probably an hour every day when we travel. The key is if I have access to I don't even put an out of office message on my email.
Yeah.
Or cell phone or anything. I have a great assistant. Shout out to Katie Hammock, who
keeps the trains running,
keeps things going, and she is wonderful and been with me at Merrill, Ameriprise, and now at RFG.
Yeah.
So she's been very key to a lot of my success, and I'm very grateful for that.
Why do you think more advisors don't take advantage of being strategic with their time?
Fear.
I mean,
that's probably bad for a podcast to have a one-word answer.
No, I want to talk about fear, because you and I were having this really interesting conversation a couple of weeks ago in talking with some prospects, and we were reminiscing about our broker-dealer change. And it was the first time I'd heard you really express how afraid you really were, as we were staring at this abyss of, the reality of making a broker-dealer change, and everything is going to change. the business model is going to change, the technology is going to change, the custodians are going to change. There wasn't an inch of the RFG platform that wasn't about to be torn down. And you shared, you're like, that was really a scary time. And here on the other side of it, why are you able to invest your most valuable resource, your time, in creating all these memories and still be growing your practice and serving your clients is because of the technology. And so we all knew it. We just locked arms. We knew we had to take this big leap over the abyss and do the hard things to get there. And it's so fascinating to me because fear is the number one reason cited by advisors of why they don't become independent, why they stay locked in a captive channel, locked in the wirehouses.
Why they continue to drink.
Why their marriages are falling apart.
Exactly. Fear is the obstacle. And you have to peel the onion back and just say that, fear is a somewhat irrational emotion. It usually is what you fear is usually not nearly as bad as the actual fear itself of that. We all have some reluctance to change.
Yep.
But change is part of life. Life's a big, long, complicated journey. Yeah. And we've got changes all the way. And when you step back and look at it, if you just ask yourself, okay, is it going to be that bad? It's a pain in the butt to change broker-dealers. I mean, you're getting signatures and changing
transition
paperwork
is hard
and all
work.
that kind of stuff. But, I stepped back and I said, well, wait a minute. I changed from Merrill Lynch to Ameriprise. And then I changed from Ameriprise here. And I didn't, not a single client said, no, I'm not going with you.
Right.
It is, it is. Now that reminds me of an interesting story. I loved when I moved from Merrill Lynch to Ameriprise. My favorite line I use with clients is, "I can do everything for you I did at Merrill Lynch. I just cannot do it as expensively." So, and it popped into my head. But clients are used to things changing over the course of a long relationship.
They're human.
Yeah.
So they already know in their own lives, the only constant in life is change.
But, I for the life of me, I don't understand why I cannot understand why in this day and age an advisor would go from one wirehouse to another wirehouse, albeit get paid, but then enter into a period of 7, 9, 11 years of forgivable loan payments and false taxation and all these kind of things that only make the next 9 to 11 years a prison sentence.
And it's interesting because it's all about, to some degree, the aversion to fear, the aversion to change.
Yeah. And it's just...
Do you have any coping mechanisms? Like you talked about, walking through processing in your head, what's the worst case scenario? But do you go through any steps when you're helping either yourself or your clients make these decisions where you do have to, everything you want is on the other side of fear?
I haven't really thought about that. Other than...
Because let me frame it up a little bit, because you're entering a really exciting next chapter, which is your succession planning and bringing your daughter into your practice.
Right.
Your daughter, who has spent 10 years plus as a teacher. So she is, I think, by default going to be amazingly successful because so much of being an advisor is nurturing and teaching. But there's fear involved there. How, as you think about, all right, for you, you're taking a chance on bringing her into the industry. She's taking a chance on doing something completely new. Right. How did you all walk through that? How did you get to a point where you had the confidence and the conviction to do what I think is one of the greatest gifts of independence, which is control over your succession plan?
Right. The I don't know that I don't know if fear was the fears are there, and they manifest into certain amount of anxiety. And I have anxiety over certain things. I'm dealing with some health issues with my dad and that sort of thing. That's what's kept me awake at night lately, and helping to manage that. But regarding Allison, my daughter, she had already come to the decision that she could not be a teacher for a full 25 or 30 years.
Yeah.
That teaching and there were too many aspects. If she could just be free to teach and deal just with children, preferably orphans because the parents were difficult. That sounds terrible, but she literally had one parent that she had like a 300 plus email stream from last spring.
Yep.
That's just made her life miserable, and it's a small number of people that make life difficult for teachers. So all of you out there, please be kind to your children's teachers, and they are working very, very hard. Yep. It's a hard life for not much money, and it's good. So Allison was already exploring making a career change, giving that up, thinking about maybe going back to school. She had been kind of noodling on this for a year or so, and it just dawned on me one day that maybe it would be good for her to consider coming into this business. So I didn't go to her first. I talked with my wife, Barbara, and said, what do you think about this? Do you think that's something? She said, I don't know if she'd even be interested in it. So Barbara and I talked about it for probably several weeks, off and on, before I even approached Allison. And it had not crossed Allison's mind either.
Right.
And so we talked a little bit about, how that might work. And then she and her husband talked about it, and she said, yeah, I think that's what I'd like to do. So I actually hired her, what was it, about a year ago?
Yeah.
That I came and talked to you.
Yeah.
Because I value your input and opinion. And that's one nice thing about at RFG. I have really access to some great people that I can bounce ideas off of. And you enthusiastically said
more,
yes.
More women into
this
the
would
industry.
be a great thing. And so there's a lot of things about our industry. The demographics line up very nicely. The average age of an advisor out there is about 60.
Yeah.
And so the field, the force of advisors out there is aging far too rapidly, and we don't have enough young people. We don't have enough women out there, and there's.
You're stealing my soapbox.
I know. There's all of these types of things, and our job is not so much complex financial and out there. And our job is to hold our client's hand, to listen to them, hold their hand, help them
plan,
make good decisions along the way, and just basically be there for them. But more than anything else, we're hand holders.
Right.
So Allison has those qualities of, being a good listener, and being empathetic, and she's just a kind, really nice, principled person that will, and you don't really need a whole lot more than that.
Right.
So my goal is not to turn over my practice to her.
Right.
Because I like what I do. And even though I'm 66 years old,
you got a long runway.
I'd like to work. If my health stays good, I'd like to work till I'm 80. Maybe.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to turn it over to her.
Yep. She's going to grow.
She needs to build her business and let me help her build her business. And at some point in time down the road, then we will, consider a more formal succession plan.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a succession plan now.
Yeah.
even though I've hired Allison on board, she couldn't take
Right,
over
right.
now. So she's, passed all her licenses and that sort of thing.
But she's got a learning curve ahead of her.
She does. And that's going to take several years for
Yeah.
her to figure that out before she could be officially my successor.
Yeah. All right, Jack, since you went there, you shared that you're 66 years old. So I want to ask you about aging in the industry. We talk a lot about the succession crisis and the average age of the financial advisor being north of, anywhere between 60 and 65, depending on the study. You're probably getting asked that question. How often, how long are you going to work? What does that look like for you? Let's talk about it. Like,
Sure.
How do you address that with clients, and what does it mean to you?
One thing, I'll first of all, I love what I do, and I'd like to do it
Till you're 80 at least.
Yeah, a long time, and I love the flexibility, the freedom, and everything. It's not my job is not confining.
Right.
So it allows us to travel as much as we want to. Technology allows that. So there's no reason to. And if your clients value you, they don't want you to retire. They don't want to have to work with a new advisor. So I have had this come up as I tell people that I'm bringing Allison on board to come work with me. They say, "Are you going somewhere?" And I say, no, don't worry about that. I tell them my goal is to probably work another 15 years or so. And of course, none of us know what God's going to help us deliver as far as, our longevity is. I always joke about it. And I've even done this when I'm doing financial planning with someone, and I'll say, "What's your date of death?"
Yeah.
Because planning is a lot easier if we know what our date of death is.
Right. Can we get that book?
Yeah, so we don't know. But I'm blessed with good health today, and my intention is to work another 15 years or so, probably. And I probably won't ever really quit either, so as long as my health is good. However, I do think that we as advisors have an obligation to take care of ourselves, to try to promote that longevity. And as part of that work-life balance. And so I work out. I have two different workout regimens that I do that alternate. And I work out 6 days a week. Mm-hmm. And
one of those is Iron Tribe.
One of them is Iron Tribe. And it's interesting. I've been at Iron Tribe almost 12 years.
Wow.
And it's a wonderful brand. And I have clients that I've gotten from Iron Tribe that have been it's been wonderful, and it's just a wonderful community. But this calendar year, I've had personal best in like 8 different weightlifting moves at age 66.
66.
Yes.
Yep.
So, I'm not doing, 275-pound power cleans.
Right.
But still, I've been tracking those since like 2012, and an app on my phone, and I've gotten new PRs in like 8 different lifts this year.
You can control your metabolic age.
That is true, and so we can help guide along the way by valuing what we're blessed with. And taking that and making the most of it.
And you've done what is so critically important, to work out 6 days a week. You've made it a habit.
Correct.
You carve out the time. It doesn't move on your calendar.
Well, I also do it with Barbara. Mm-hmm. So it's, date night in the gym, and then we go eat. So it is something we do together. Allison, my daughter, and her husband also go to Iron Tribe with us. And so it's a family thing. Yeah. And it's we don't take ourselves seriously in the gym, but we take our workout seriously. Right. So we laugh and have a great time. I modify their prescribed workout quite often based on, I've got some sore knees and things of that nature. And you have to.
But you don't make excuses. You just modify and move on.
You have to listen to your body.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit of an art to working out when you're older, but everybody can do something to be moving. And if you quit moving,
you're dead.
Your body is starting to die.
Yep.
And I've got, Barbara and I have aging parents that are in their late 80s who did not maintain an active lifestyle into their 60s, and they're paying prices for it now. So it is something we want to try to avoid, and by maintaining our active lifestyle, plus it's fun.
It is fun. Well, and I turned 51 in May, and the change I made in my brain was to longevity. So, you get kind of obsessive about, whether it's the PR or the amount of weight or the number of workouts or all the rest of it. And I was like, I'm going to change that goal. I've got enough goals I'm chasing. Instead, I want to be, 6 to 7 days a week, and I want longevity.
Right.
I want to be able to run. I want to be able to cycle. I want to be able to, do a 15-mile climb. I'm not going to be as obsessed about what is the output on any given day as long as I have longevity. And I think you're right. I think you just got to, when people tell me I don't have time to work out, I love you all, but I lose a little bit of respect for you.
Yeah.
Make it a priority. If you don't have your health, you have nothing.
My new granddaughter, 3 weeks old, and our first grandchild. So we waited a long time to become grandparents.
God's gift.
Yeah.
God's greatest gift.
When she's 10, I'll be 76. So I have to do all this work so I can be skiing with her.
Exactly.
At Deer Valley in Utah. In 10
you know
years.
what? The montage will keep me young.
Yeah, I know. It is. So it is, I have some goals from that perspective. But at the end of the day, it's good for me and my family. It's good for my clients.
Yep. It's good for the enterprise value of your practice.
It's good for everything to do that. And so, all you out there in the world, if you want to know how to get started and be physically active, come see me.
Love it. Thanks, Jack.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Disruption Blueprint podcast. Click the follow button to be notified when new episodes become available. Visit our website at www.rfgadvisory.com or schedule a call on our advisor resources page. And don't forget to click the follow button to be notified when new episodes become available. Content here is for illustrative purposes and general information only. It is not legal, tax, or individualized financial advice, nor is it a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold any specific security or engage in any specific trading strategy. Information here may be provided in part by third-party sources. These sources are generally deemed to be reliable. However, neither our guest nor RFG Advisory guarantee the accuracy of third-party sources. The views expressed here are those of our guest. They do not necessarily represent those of RFG Advisory, its employees, or its clients. This commentary should not be regarded as a description of advisory services provided by RFG Advisory or performance returns of any client. The views reflected in the commentary are subject to change at any time without notice. Securities offered by registered representatives of Private Client Services, member FINRA SIPC. Advisory services offered by investment advisory representatives of RFG Advisory, a registered investment advisor. Private Client Services and RFG Advisory are unaffiliated entities. Advisory services are only offered to clients or prospective clients where RFG Advisory and its representatives are properly licensed or exempt from licensure. No advisory services may be rendered by RFG Advisory unless a client agreement is in place. RFG Advisory is an SEC-registered investment advisor. SEC registration does not constitute an endorsement of RFG by the Commission, nor does it indicate that RFG or any associated investment advisory representative has attained a particular level of skill or ability.